Ethan perched on the edge of the bed and looked at the digital scale on the floor, stared back at him, teasing him with the numbers 260 pounds. His heart sunk. Another day, another depressing step on the scale. It wasn't enough for Olivia, not for the lady he had sworn to love and adore, even as her lover. Appeared to grow further distant with every pound he couldn't reduce quickly enough. The weight wasn't entirely his fault. At least that's what Ethan told himself late at night, when sleep refused to come. The accident a year ago had changed. He had been a healthy, energetic man before that day, exercising 3 miles before work, riding on weekends, and chasing thoughts of adventure with Olivia. But the fall had shattered more than his leg. Months of immobility had robbed his confidence, his physique, and he feared intimacy in his marriage now. Olivia governed their lives with the precision of a drill sergeant. She was the embodiment of athletics, her toned muscles and sun-kissed skin in stark contrast to Ethan's tired overweight. Olivia spent hours in the gym, every day training with her personal coach Ryan, whom she endlessly complimented. Ethan, I wasn't allowed to go with her. You're not ready for the gym, as she had indicated. Just embarrass yourself and focus on the essentials like walking and stretching. Olivia had always been honest, but her words hurt him more than he let on. Recently, her criticisms had a sharper edge, and her approach to motivating him bordered on cruelty. Meals she prepared were bland, carefully portioned, and devoid of any joy. She inspected every bite. Caloric dessert was a distant memory, and the simple joy of a cold lager on. Ethan Olivia had declared last night that a hot day was forbidden. She needed to want this. I took the ice cream tub from his hands and threw it away because if you don't care enough to change, why? Her threat was apparent, but Ethan wasn't sure if she meant it. Leaving him, but he couldn't shake the worry. Each day, she reinforced it in subtle, cruel ways by withholding affection, rejecting his advances with caustic remarks about his body, and reminded him of all the ways he was. Falling short sex isn't exactly a turn-on when. Though she quipped once it had been some time since they'd been together. The memory of her warmth felt as distant as the man he used to be. The steps creaked, and Ethan looked up as Olivia arrived into the bedroom. She was dressed in her gym gear, her hair pulled back into a sleek. A water bottle dangled from her manicured fingers as she inquired, nodding. Towards the scale, 260, Ethan murmured. She sighed audibly, crossing her arms. It's the same as yesterday. Are you even trying? Walking every day, like you said. I'm warming up and extending everything, he responded, his voice tinted with. Walking isn't going to cut it, Olivia remarked coldly. If you were serious, you'd find a way to advance faster. I think you need to limit the amount of why. Our meals some more. Ethan cut her off, his patience waning. Then trying the best I can. I don't have the energy for anything anymore. I'm like a dead battery. Your best isn't enough. She hissed, her voice rising. It's been 8 months, Ethan, of me doing everything to support you, food, daily weigh-ins, sacrificing my time, and you still look like this, Ethan. I flinched, but she wasn't finished. If I can put in the effort, why can't I go to? I go to the gym every day and work my ass off while you shuffle around the block like an old man. It's no surprise you're stuck. Because you won't let me go to the gym, he shot out, his irritation finally spilling over. Olivia gazed at him. The gym isn't for you yet. You be a laughing stock, and I'm not. I'm going to stand by as you embarrass yourself and me. Ethan lowered his gaze, the fight evaporating from him. Olivia shook her, she taking her vehicle keys from the dresser. I'm going to the gym, she stated bluntly. I'll be back in 2 hours. Sure you actually do something productive while I'm gone. The door slammed, leaving Ethan alone with the scale and, with the weight of her disappointment, he went to the window and watched Olivia reverse her car out of the driveway. The sight of her leaving for another session with Ryan made his stomach churn with a mix of jealousy and inadequacy. Ryan, The golden boy she appeared to admire more than her own husband Ethan couldn't shake the nag. Olivia's regard for him had subtly moved to her trainer, and Ethan slipped into the ancient recliner in the corner of the room, his mind racing. He wanted to think that his efforts would eventually pay off, that Olivia's love might be won back if he simply reduced the weight. But as the weeks dragged on, Ethan looked at the untouched platter of steaming. Olivia sipped her herbal tea while his appetite faded across the table. Ethan had remarked with the careless precision of someone who was being inflexible and frigid, "If you can't get it together." Moments earlier, her tone was as icy as the food on his plate. "I'll have to reconsider this marriage. I can't be with someone who doesn't take care of themselves. It's not just about how you look. If you don't care enough to change, why should I bother with the words?" Ethan attempted to respond, but nothing came out of his mouth. After 8 months of consistent eating and walking, his throat felt dry and his chest tight. Laps around the neighborhood, the scale refused to budge. His progress had plateaued weeks before, and the harder. He felt more fatigued and despondent as Olivia dangled there. Entire marriage above his head like a sword, her love reduced to a brutal ultimatum he longed to fight back against. Tell her she was being unjust, but part of him believed her. Perhaps she was right. Maybe he wasn't doing enough. He looked at her lean, with her arms crossed over her chest, and her sharp jawline framed by the golden light of the dining room. She appeared more like a statue than the warm, loving woman he had married. Ethan felt a lump form in his throat. "Do you really mean that?" he whispered quietly. Olivia didn't flinch. "I do, Ethan. This isn't just about me. It's about you. If you can't even care for your own body, what kind of life are we expected to live? I've tried to help, but you don't seem to want it badly enough." "Ryan says—" "Stop talking about Ryan," Ethan screamed, his voice quivering with fury and grief. "He's not my trainer, Olivia. He's not my wife or doctor." Olivia blinked. He was thrown off for a second, but quickly recovered and is just giving counsel to Ethan. "Cares about results just like I do. And I'm starting to question if you care at all." Her words cut through him like a. Ethan slid his chair back and moved to the living room, leaving Olivia alone at the table. The walls of their house felt like it was closing in on them, so he sat on the couch, head in his hands. With the weight of months of battle crushing down on him, he wanted to shout, cry, or hate, but all he could do was sit in stunned quiet. Why was Olivia like this? He couldn't comprehend her. They used to be a team supporting each other on through every difficulty, but now she was a drill sergeant, my love. He couldn't seem to change, conditional on statistics, seducing him with sex and turning their marriage into some type. Ethan peered at the gloom, unsure what had happened to the lady he loved. Television, his reflection just visible in the screen. He appeared tired, beaten, weak, but deep within a small. The ember of determination began to glow. If he was going to drop this weight, it wouldn't be for Olivia, because of her threats or her ultimatums. It would be for himself, the man he used to be, or the man he wanted to become again, and he would do it his way. To learn out what happens next, kindly subscribe to the channel. The next day, Ethan's heart raced. He had discovered the clinic online late last night after hours of restless pacing, and Dr. Alan Morgan, MD, earned excellent recommendations as a specialist in nutrition and weight loss with a focus on sustainable techniques. Ethan didn't tell Olivia this was his decision, his fight. He took a deep breath and walked in. The clinic was modern and welcoming, with calming blue walls and a faint scent of lavender. A receptionist greeted him. With a warm smile, "Mr. Ethan Davis," she asked, glancing at her tablet. "Yes, Ethan," replied, his voice steady despite the nerves fluttering in his chest. "Dr. Morgan will see you now, room 3 down the." Ethan followed her directions and entered the room, where a man in his late 40s was reviewing a chart on a sleek tablet. Dr. Morgan was tall, lean, and confident. That immediately put Ethan at ease with his salt and pepper hair and kind gray eyes. Gave him the look of someone who had seen everything and knew how to fix it. Dr. Morgan said, offering a firm handshake, "Good to M. To you. Let's talk about what brings you here." Ethan sat down and poured his heart out to Dr. Morgan. Everything. The accident, the weight gain, Olivia's harsh ultimatums, and the plateau that made him feel stuck. The doctor listened intently, nodding occasionally, but never interrupting when Ethan finished. Dr. Morgan set down his tablet. "First of all, I'm glad you're here. It sounds like you've been carrying this burden alone for a long time. And that's not easy. You've already taken the hardest step by walking through that door." Ethan felt a lump rise in his throat at the unexpected kindness. "Thanks," he murmured, "but I don't know what else to do. I've tried everything." Dr. Morgan smiled, gently. "Not everything. Ethan, let's start by understanding where you are right now, your metabolism, your activity level, your diet. And then we'll make a plan, not a quick fix, but something sustainable. This isn't about perfection. It's about progress." For the first time in months, Ethan felt a glimmer of hope. This wasn't Olivia berating him or Ryan spouting advice through her. This was someone who believed in him. Dr. Morgan sat across from Ethan, his tablet resting on the desk, as he listened to Ethan describe his daily routine. Bland meals, devoid of energy, endless walking without real purpose, and the constant pressure from Olivia. As Ethan finished, Dr. Morgan leaned back in his chair, his brows furrowed in thought. "That's your diet, the doctor finally asked, his tone a mix of disbelief and concern." Ethan nodded hesitantly. "It's what Olivia insists on. She's convinced it's the only way." Dr. Morgan sighed heavily and ran a hand through his salt and pepper hair. "Ethan, it's no wonder you're stuck. Everything about this plan is fundamentally wrong." He leaned forward, his expression earnest. "Look, I don't doubt your wife means well, but this kind of approach is designed for failure, especially for someone in your situation. A diet like yours might work temporarily for a 20-some-year-old girl trying to drop a few pounds, but for you, an adult man, you're eating far too little, and what you're eating isn't enough to support your body's needs." Ethan blinked in surprise, "But she said I need a calorie deficit to lose weight." "That's true," Dr. Morgan said, nodding, "but not like this. What you're doing is extreme. Your body is in survival mode. It's holding on to every bit of fat because it thinks you're starving. Worse, this lack of proper nutrients can lead to serious health problems." "Ethan, I'm going to be honest, your wife went too far." Ethan sat back, stunned. For months he had blindly followed Olivia's plan, believing her strict regimen was the only way to end. Now, for the first time, someone was telling him it wasn't just unnecessary, it was harmful. "What should I do then?" Ethan asked, his voice a mix of frustration and desperation. Dr. Morgan picked up his tablet and tapped a few keys. "Let's start with balance. A good diet isn't about cutting everything out, it's about eating the right thing in the right amounts." He turned the screen toward Ethan, showing a series of meal plans. "These plans include proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, all essential to your body's functioning. You'll eat foods like chicken, beef, fish, rice, potatoes, and yes, vegetables, but you'll also have room for the occasional dessert or treat in moderation. Your calorie deficit will be mild but consistent, allowing you to lose weight without exhausting yourself or risking your health." Ethan stared at the screen, his jaw slack. "You mean I can eat normal food and still lose weight?" Dr. Morgan chuckled. "Absolutely, and it'll be more effective than what you've been doing. You'll have more energy, your metabolism will start working for you instead of against you, and you won't feel like you're punishing yourself every time you sit down to eat." Ethan couldn't believe what he was hearing. After months of bland salads and grueling hunger pangs, the idea of eating real food and still making progress felt revolutionary. But Dr. Morgan continued, his tone serious. "We need more information. First, I want you to get a full workup: hormone levels, thyroid function, metabolic panel, the works. This will tell us if there's anything else holding you back, something that diet alone can't fix." Ethan nodded eagerly. "And after that, why tailor your nutrition plan to your results?" Dr. Morgan said. "And Ethan, I'm going to say this up front, you need to start working out, not walking or stretching. Actual resistance training, building muscle, will speed up your metabolism and improve your overall health. But don't worry, he added with a reassuring smile, we'll start slow and I'll recommend a good trainer to guide you. Ethan felt a surge of hope of feeling he hadn't experienced in months. Thank you, doctor. Really, doctor? Morgan extended his hand, and Ethan shook it firmly. You're welcome, Ethan. I promise you this can work, but it's going to take patience and effort. Are you ready for that? Ethan nodded. I am. A week later, Ethan sat in Dr. Morgan's office again, this time armed with a folder of test results. The doctor reviewed them carefully, his brow furrowing slightly as he made notes. Well, Dr. Morgan said, finally, you've got a few things working against you. Your testosterone is low, your thyroid function isn't optimal, and your vitamin D levels are almost non-existent. But nothing here is insurmountable. I'm prescribing some supplements to address these issues and get your body back on track. Ethan listened intently as Dr. Morgan laid out his recommendations, from specific vitamins to a mild medication for hormone regulation. Then the doctor handed him a printed guide, a personalized meal plan, complete with recipes, portion sizes, and even options for cheat meals. This is your road map, Dr. Morgan said. Follow it, and you'll see results. But remember, this is a lifestyle change, not a quick fix. Ethan flipped through the pages, his heart swelling with a sense of possibility. For the first time in months, he felt like he had a clear path forward. And about the gym, Dr. Morgan added, handing him a business card. This is a trainer I trust. He'll help you ease into strength training and build confidence. Muscle isn't just about aesthetics, it's your secret weapon for long-term success. Ethan smiled, gripping the card tightly. I can't thank you enough. Dr. Morgan clapped him on the shoulder. You've got this, Ethan. Now go out there and prove it to yourself. As Ethan left the clinic, he felt lighter, not because he had lost weight, but because he finally had hope. This time the journey wasn't about Olivia's approval or impossible ultimatums. It was about reclaiming his life. Ethan stared at the contact card Dr. Morgan had handed him, hesitating before dialing. He wasn't sure why he felt so nervous. This was just a trainer, someone to help him on this new path. Finally, he pressed the call button and listened to the ringing on the other end. Hi, this is Rachel. A cheerful voice answered. Ethan cleared his throat. Hi, Rachel. My name is Ethan Davis. Dr. Morgan recommended I reach out to you about starting some personal training. Oh, of course, Rachel replied, her voice warm and inviting. Dr. Morgan's great. I'd be happy to help you. Ethan, when are you available to come by the gym? I'd love to meet you and go over everything. After arranging to meet the next day, Ethan hung up, still feeling a little unsure. Rachel wasn't what he'd expected. For some reason, he had assumed Dr. Morgan would recommended someone like Olivia's trainer Ryan. Learning Rachel was a woman made Ethan uneasy, though he couldn't quite pinpoint why. Maybe it was Olivia's voice in his head, critical and sharp, warning him he wasn't ready for this. He searched online for Rachel's fitness center and was surprised to see it was much farther away than he'd expected, but that he thought might be for the best. It meant he'd be far from Olivia's judgmental gaze and Ryan's picture-perfect gym crowd at home. Ethan kept quiet about the new plan. He didn't tell I about Dr. Morgan's advice or his appointment with Rachel. He didn't want to deal with her skepticism or worse, her disdain. But as they sat across from each other at dinner that evening, he noticed Olivia's sharp eyes lingering on him. You're quiet, she remarked, her tone indifferent. Something on your mind? Ethan shook his head. Just tired. She didn't press further, though. He caught her giving him a curious look before she turned back to her phone. Ethan couldn't tell if she suspected anything, but her cold demeanor hadn't thawed. She was as distant as ever. Her words clipped her affection non-existent. Still, Ethan felt a small spark of something he hadn't felt in a long time: determination. The next morning, Ethan arrived at the fitness center, a modest but modern facility tucked into a quiet commercial strip. He pushed through the glass doors, the hum of treadmills and the clang of weights filling the air. His nose spiked as he approached the front desk. Ethan Davis, a voice called out. He turned to see R. Akel approaching with a friendly smile. She was athletic and confident, her toned arms and strong legs a testament to her dedication. But it wasn't just her physique that struck Ethan, it was her demeanor. She wasn't Intimidating or condescending, she exuded warmth and encouragement. "Hi, Rachel," Ethan said. Shaking her hand, "I'm so glad you're here," Rachel said brightly. "Let's sit down and go over everything." They walked to a corner of the gym, where Rachel pulled out a clipboard and a copy of Dr. Morgan's recommendations. As she read, she nodded approvingly. "This is great," she said. "Dr. Morgan really knows his stuff. Will ease you into this. Focus on building strength and improving your metabolism. And don't worry, I'll make sure you're comfortable every step of the way." Ethan felt some of his anxiety melt away. Rachel's voice was calm and reassuring, a stark contrast to the critical tone he had grown used to hearing from Olivia. "First," Rachel continued, "Leighton, get some baseline measurements. We'll weigh you again and take a few body measurements. That way we can track your progress accurately." Ethan nodded, following Rachel's instructions as she guided him through the process. Her professionalism put him at ease, even as he winced at the numbers on the scale. "It's just a starting point," Rachel said with a smile. "The important thing is that you're here. That's a big step." Rachel started Ethan on a simple routine: light resistance exercises, basic movements to wake up his muscles, and a short session on the elliptical to get his heart rate up. It was harder than Ethan expected. His muscles burned and sweat dripped down his back, but Rachel stayed by his side, encouraging him with every rep. "Remember, progress is progress," she said as he struggled through his final set of leg presses. "You're doing great, Ethan." By the end of the session, Ethan was exhausted, but exhilarated. For the first time in months, he felt a glimmer of pride in himself. "Same time tomorrow?" Rachel asked as he wiped his face with a towel. "You bet," Ethan said, surprising himself with how eager he felt. On the way home, Ethan stopped at the supermarket, clutching the meal plan Dr. Morgan had given him. For the first time in months, he felt excited about food. He loaded his cart with chicken breasts, fresh vegetables, brown rice, and a small container of Greek yogurt. He also took more fruit and a small jar of honey as he placed each item on the conveyor belt. Ethan felt like he was reclaiming a piece of himself. This wasn't about Olivia's impossible standards or Ryan's smug advice. It was about him, his health, his goals, his future. By the time he got home, Olivia had already left for the gym. Ethan unpacked his groceries, his heart lighter than it had been in a long time. For the first time in months, he felt like he was in control, and that he realized was the greatest victory of all. Ethan stood at the stove carefully seasoning a pan of chicken breast. The smell of olive oil and garlic filled the kitchen. AR cry from the bland, lifeless meals Olivia had been forcing on him. His grocery bags from earlier in the day were still on the counter, a mix of fresh produce, grains, and proteins waiting to be prepped. For the first time in months, cooking felt like an act of self-care, not a punishment. The sound of the front door slamming shut snapped him out of his thoughts. Olivia's voice followed, sharp and impatient. "Ethan, what's all this?" She appeared in the doorway, her gym bag slung over one shoulder. Her gaze darted to the organized spread on the counter, then to the food on the stove. Suspicion flickered in her eyes. "I'm cooking," Ethan said, keeping his tone neutral. "What's with all the food?" she asked, stepping closer. "This doesn't look like the plan we've been following." "It's not," Ethan replied, turning off the burner. "I've started a new plan. Dr. Morgan helped me put it together." Olivia crossed her arms, her posture stiffening. "You went to a doctor without telling me I needed professional advice," Ethan said, trying to stay calm. He said, "The plan I was on wasn't healthy. It wasn't working." Liv, her expression darkened. "It wasn't working because you weren't trying hard enough." "Ethan, I told you." Ryan said. "Ryan again?" Ethan interrupted, his frustration bubbling to the surface. "Why do you keep bringing him up? He's your trainer, not mine." "Because Ryan knows what he's talking about." Olivia shot back. "Unlike you, he actually gets results." Ethan felt the sting of her words, but refused to let them derail him. "Well, I have a trainer now too," he said evenly. "Her name is Rachel. She's at a different gym one farther from here." Olivia blinked, caught off guard. "A woman? Are you serious? How much is that costing?" "This is just going to be another waste of time and money." "It's not a waste," Ethan said firmly. "This is my life, Olivia, my health, and Rachel is great. She's supportive and she understands what I need." "And what exactly do you need?" Olivia asked, her voice dripping with skepticism, another excuse for why you're not making progress, Ethan. Clenched his jaw, the words cutting deeper than he cared to admit. No, he said. Slowly, I need someone who believes in me, not someone who tears me down every step of the way. Olivia's eyes flashed with anger, but she didn't respond immediately. Instead, she turned her attention back to the stove, eyeing the food with disdain. This isn't going to work, Ethan. You don't have the discipline, and no trainer is going to change that. The kitchen fell silent, her words echoing in Ethan's mind. He wanted to shout, to demand why she was being so cruel, but something else gnawed at him, a thought he couldn't shake. Why was she so invested in Ryan? She mentioned him constantly, more than seemed necessary, and her criticism of Ethan went beyond tough love. It felt calculated, almost as if she wanted him to fail. The possibility hit him like a punch to the gut. Could she be cheating? The doubt settled in his chest like a heavy stone, but he channeled his frustration into resolve. You'll see, Ethan said quietly. This will work. Without another word, Olivia grabbed her gym bag and stormed out of the kitchen, leaving Ethan alone. The following days fell into a rhythm. Ethan trained with Rachel, who praised his growing strength and focus. He stuck to his meal plan, finding joy in the balance of flavors and the control it gave him. Each small victory a heavier weight lifted. A pound drop felt like a step toward reclaiming his life, but the suspicion lingered late at night. As he lay awake in bed, the image of Olivia and Ryan together haunted him. He needed answers. A week later, Ethan found himself sitting in a quiet office. Across from him sat a man in his 50s with a calm, professional demeanor. The sign on the desk read, David Harrow, private investigator. I need to know if my wife is cheating on me, Ethan said, his voice steady despite the storm brewing inside him. David nodded, taking out a notepad. What makes you suspect her? Ethan explained. Everything. The constant mentions of Ryan, the long hours at the gym, her increasing coldness toward him. David listened carefully, jotting down notes. I'll look into it, the investigator said discreetly. Of course you'll hear from me in a week or two. After a couple weeks of training, Ethan stepped off the scale, staring at the number 253 pounds, 7 pounds down from where he started at 260. It wasn't the dramatic drop he had hoped for, but he felt better, stronger even. Before he could process the result, Olivia's voice cut through GRE like a cold wind. That's it, she said, standing in the doorway with a mocking laugh. All this time, and you've barely lost anything if you just stuck to what Ryan and I told you, you'd actually be making progress. Ethan tightened his grip on the bathroom counter, fighting the urge to respond. Her constant criticism felt like a weight heavier than anything he'd lifted in the gym. Without a word, he grabbed his gym bag and headed out the door. Rachel greeted him with her usual warm smile as he walked into the gym. Her positivity was a welcome relief. How's my star client doing today? She asked, her energy contagious. I weighed myself this morning, Ethan said, his tone uncertain. I'm down to 253.7 BS in a few weeks, but Olivia said it's barely anything. Maybe she's right. Rachel raised an eyebrow, her smile unwavering. Let me guess. She said she didn't mention anything about muscle. Did she? Ethan shook his head. That's what I thought, Rachel said, gesturing for him. Should accompany her to the measuring area. Ethan, don't forget that fat is going away, but you're also growing muscle. It's called body recomposition. Your weight might not drop rapidly, but your body is changing. She took out her tape measure and began to work measuring his waist, arms, and chest. As she read the outcomes, her grin expanded. Observe, your body volume has dropped. Everything's going precisely as it should. Ethan felt a rush of comfort and pride wash over him. Yeah, really, Rachel replied firmly, and I can see it too. You're stronger, more so in F. I didn't, and your energy levels are better, right? He nodded, recognizing that was true. For the first time in long months, he could feel the muscles in his arms, legs, and back starting to expand. Don't worry, Rachel added, in a couple of weeks we'll step things up and add a bit more challenge to your routines. You'll see even better results. Ethan couldn't help but smile. Rachel's support gave him a sense of hope. Ethan arrived home with Rachel, the photographer, and two of her buddies, a pair of equally sporty women who greeted him warmly. Olivia's Car wasn't in the driveway, so he led them through the side gate to the pool. The women quickly set up chatting and, chuckling as the photographer fixed his camera, Ethan kept himself busy straightening the backyard and clearing stray pool toys, leaves, and abandoned garden tools. The minor tasks provided him a sense of purpose, a nice distraction from the nagging strain in his chest. The snap of the camera and the women's lively chat brought a unique liveliness to the backyard. Rachel, confidently beautiful in her swimwear, posed with ease alongside her buddies. The rumble of Olivia. Ethan froze as a car drove into the driveway, shattering the peace. He heard her heels click against the sidewalk, followed by the sound of the side gate opening. Then she moved into view, her countenance a mix of shock and badly controlled annoyance. Her gaze shifted between Rachel and the other women, all striking postures in their athletic bikinis beside the shimmering pool. Ethan, she muttered quietly, her voice straining as she approached him. She mustered a nice smile for the group. Before moving up close, her tone was sharp enough to cut. What are you doing here? What is this procession of athletic? What are girls in swimwear doing in our house? Are you trying to piss me off? Are you asking for trouble? Ethan opened his mouth to respond, but Olivia did not wait for an answer. After this is over, we will. Without saying anything further, she turned on her heel and marched into closing the door behind her. Ethan drew a long breath, his chest constricting. He attempted to concentrate on the photo shoot, keeping his movements steady and deliberate, but the stress from Olivia's the words hung like a mist over him as he stood by the pool. His phone rang in his pocket, and he stepped away from the group and checked the screen. It was a message from the private detective. Ethan's heart thudded as he opened. Attachments are a series of photos and transcripts from a wiretap installed in Olivia's automobile. The images revealed Olivia and Ryan together in various spots, a cozy cafe, parked automobiles with intimate gestures, even an embrace at the gym. The transcripts proved what Ethan had begun to suspect: Olivia and Ryan were romantically involved. The knot in Ethan's chest deepened, but he forced himself to remain calm and closed the message and put his phone back into his pocket, his mind racing as the photo shoot concluded. Rachel and her pals expressed their gratitude. Ethan, you're a savior, Rachel remarked, beaming heartily. Thank you so much for allowing us to use your pool. It was fantastic. Whenever Ethan responded, managing smile. The women packed their stuff, and Rachel gave him a short pat on the shoulder. See you at the gym tomorrow, sure, Ethan said as they departed. He waited by the door for while peering onto the lonely street. His heart was heavy, but his resolution was solidifying with each passing second. Ethan stepped into the home, shoulders set and resolve firm. Olivia was waiting for him in the living room, her arms crossed and her countenance thunderous. Ethan, she shouted, rising from. What the hell was that strangers prancing about in bikinis in our home? Are you trying to disgrace us? Do you have any idea how it makes me look? Ethan raised an eyebrow, did not react. And another thing, she proceeded, her voice increasing shrill. This new idea of yours is a waste of time and money. I've tried to help you, but you are too obstinate to listen. If this is how you want to live, maybe we should just stop this marriage now. Ethan's jaw hardened, but he remained. Ethan said calmly, I'm not going to let her dominate the conversation this time. Olivia froze, evidently not interested in discussing the breakdown of her marriage, expecting him to agree so soon. What does it mean? Ethan pulled out his phone and opened. The detective's message indicates, I know everything, he stated with a steady voice. I know about you and Ryan. I know about your coffee dates and late-night rendezvous, and I have proof. He held up his. Olivia's face was illuminated by the photographs and transcripts on the phone screen. She paled and was silent for a minute before trying to recover. You got it wrong, Ethan, she mumbled. Ryan and he's simply a friend who is assisting me. That's all helping you deal by cheating on me? Ethan asked. Olivia was discovered lying, and her composure disintegrated. She sank back into the couch, her face buried in her hands, and she cried. Yes, it happened after your accident. You let yourself go, and I was drowning. Ethan, I needed someone, and Ryan was there. You weren't. Ethan felt a wave of rage, but maintained his tone controlled. So instead of supporting me, you ran to him. You've treated me since using sex and threats to influence me. Was that because of Ryan and Olivia's head? Sprang up her eyes flaming. You made me upset all the time, Ethan. You were lazy. I had to push you since you were stubborn and sad and wouldn't do it yourself. Ethan asked why you and Ryan insisted on a strategy that wasn't feasible. Olivia shook her head, avoiding his stare. It wasn't poor advice. You didn't have the discipline. You're an idiot. Ethan breathed softly. Olivia, I'm not the idiot here. I trusted you, and you betrayed me. You exploited me, used me, and made my life miserable. And for that, I am done. I'll give you what you want, a divorce, and I'll make sure the court knows all you've done. Olivia's face twisted with fury. You wouldn't dare. Ethan's voice was firm, and I would. Over the next 2 months, the divorce procedure will progress quickly thanks to the evidence Ethan presented in court about Olivia's betrayal and manipulation left little space for disagreement, and the court. Ethan was given the most of their shared assets, including the house Olivia. Despite her rage, she did not waste time mourning the loss and moved in with Ryan soon after the divorce was finalized, making their relationship public. But the honeymoon phase didn't last long. Ryan's true colors began to show. He admitted to giving Ethan poor advice on purpose, knowing it would frustrate Olivia and make her rely on. Olivia's anger and sense of betrayal grew as time passed, but she was trapped. A year after their divorce, she burned bridges with Ethan and tarnished her reputation. Ethan stood in front of a cheering crowd at a local fitness expo, holding a microphone, confident he hadn't felt in years. His transformation was nothing short of remarkable. He used to doubt himself at every turn, but now he stands tall and fit, his muscles defined in his smile. Ethan stated that losing weight is more than just physical changes. Addressing the audience, it's about finding your mental and emotional strength. It's about believing. When Ethan finished his talk, the audience erupted in applause. He stepped off the stage, where Rachel was waiting, with a warm smile. Rachel was by his side throughout his journey, first as a trainer, then as a friend, and finally as someone who had his heart. Olivia had not been kind, encouraging, and endlessly supportive. Their relationship blossomed naturally as Ethan regained his footing, and together they built a life full of mutual respect and joy. Rachel encouraged Ethan to share his story, and his inspiring weight loss journey gained attention. He started giving interviews and offering advice, helping others take the first steps toward reclaiming their lives. As Ethan walked out of the expo with Rachel hand in hand, he couldn't help but reflect on how far he had come. The pain of the past was now a distant memory, replaced by a future filled with hope, love, and strength. For the first time in years, Ethan was truly happy and ready for whatever came next. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to the channel. I wish you a great mood and good luck.